Okay, so you should be open to, in your vocab notebook, to your Part 8 vocabulary. The title of this part, so you should have a squiggly line under number 3. The title of this part of the lesson is, this part of the vocab is Wonder, Part 8, which you already knew, so you could have already had this much. Chapter 7 through, which again you already knew since we stopped on 6 yesterday. We're starting on 7 today. And then this part you can go ahead and add chapter 7 through 12. And then again, you also know today's date, so you could have already had that, December 4th, 2020. And then you know we ended on number 3 yesterday, so we're going to start on number 4 today. So now we should be able to go ahead. I shouldn't have to wait because everybody should have already had everything except for chapter 12. And now we're ready to start number 4. There are 3 words today. Victoria, you will have all 3. Number 4 is the word shriek. Shriek. S-H-R-I-E-K. Shriek. S-H-R-I-E-K. Shriek. S-H-R-I-E-K is the word shriek. It is a verb. It is a verb, so it is an action. Shriek is a verb that means to scream in a high pitched voice. So it's a very high-pitched scream. So shriek, S-H-R-I-E-K, is a verb. It means to scream in a high-pitched voice. Okay, here's the word in context. So you're trying to figure out who did this, who shrieked, why did they shriek, what did they shriek? Did they say something when they shriek, or did they just make a yelling sound? Oh my God, she shrieked, holding her hands over her eyes like she was crying. So who is she, and why did she shriek? Okay, number 5. Number 5 is the word intense. Intense, you've probably heard this a bunch. I-N-T-E-N-S-E, intense. I-N-T-E-N-S-E. This is a common word. We hear this a lot. You just may not have known exactly what it meant, but using context clues, you probably have an idea of what it means. It is an adjective. So it describes a noun. It can describe a person. It can describe a thing. It can describe an idea. It wouldn't really describe a place. Well, it could, I guess. It could describe a place, like how a place feels. It means that something is extreme or crazy. Intense. I-N-T-E-N-S-E. It is an adjective. It means that something is extreme or crazy. So if something is intense, it is extreme. If you were describing a feeling, it means it's an extreme feeling. It's strong feeling. Okay, here's the word in context. So be listening. What are they saying is intense? Why is it intense? was intense. It's not a very good sentence in context. But, so if you wrote a sentence like that on your quiz, that was intense. Am I going to count you right? No, because that could mean something like that was boring. And intense is pretty much the opposite of boring. But if you say that was intense, I could think you may mean it's boring. So make sure that you use more detail than that. But that means as we're reading, we really have to listen for it to see what it means. Or, I'm sorry, what they're talking about. Intense. I-N-T-E-N-S-E. You know what? We better go. So girls at home, just hang out. Okay, so number 6 is the word milling. Milling. M-I-L-L-I-N-G. Milling. M-I-L-L-I-N-G. Milling. And milling is another verb. And it means wandering around. So if people are milling about, that means they're kind of wandering around an area, a space. It wouldn't necessarily be like if you go hiking. Technically, when you go hike, you're wandering. But that's like a really large area. If you're milling about, you're more kind of wandering around a small area, like an auditorium or a field, like a small field, something like that. Like you could mill about on a soccer field, or you could mill about in a gymnasium. So you know how they're smaller than like nature if you're going hiking? So you wouldn't say that you're milling about the forest. It would be more of a smaller area. Okay, so here it is in context. Make sure you're listening. Where are they? Why are they doing this? Who is doing this? Okay, there were lots of kids milling around in this area. So I pulled what was left of my hoodie over my head and kept my face down, hands in pockets, as we made our way through the crowd. So, what area are they talking about? Why are they milling around? Who is it? Who are these kids? Okay, any questions about vocab? So yes, we will finish this part of Wonder on Monday. We're going to push it back a little bit. If we end up having a lot of time after the spelling test this afternoon, maybe we'll do it then. But we need to have like probably about 45 minutes to an hour. So if we have 45 minutes to an hour left after our spelling test before we pack up, we will do Wonder. Otherwise, we're probably not going to have time today. Because I'm not even sure if right now, because we only have like 15 minutes till specials, and we have 6 chapters, so I don't even think that's enough time to read the whole part. Okay, so, you should be in your good listening position, ready to follow along with your finger or your bookmark, and we are on page 261. Page 261. Make sure that you are following along closely with your finger or your pencil and you are focusing. The more you focus, the easier it is to answer these questions without having to look back in the book. Chapter 7, Be Kind to Nature. An announcement came over the huge speakers next to the stadium lights. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the 23rd annual Big Movie Night at the Broarwood Nature Reserve. Welcome, teachers and students from MS 342, the William Heath School. A big cheer went up on the left side of the field. Welcome, teachers and students from Glover Academy. Another cheer went up, this time from the right side of the field. And welcome, teachers and students from the Beecher Prep School. Our whole group cheered as loudly as we could. We're thrilled to have you as our guests here tonight, and thrilled that the weather is cooperating. In fact, can you believe what a beautiful night this is? Again, everyone hooped and hollered. So as we prepare the movie, we do ask that you take a few moments to listen to this important announcement. The Broarwood Nature Reserve, as you know, is dedicated to preserving our natural resources and the environment. We ask that you leave no litter behind, clean up after yourselves, be kind to nature, and it will be kind to you. We ask that you keep that in mind as you walk around the grounds. Do not venture beyond the orange cones at the edges of the fairgrounds. Do not go into the cornfields or the woods. Please keep the free roaming to a minimum. Even if you don't feel like watching the movie, your fellow students may feel otherwise. So please be courteous. No talking, no playing music, no running around. The restrooms are located on the other side of the concession stands. After the movie is over, it will be quite dark, so we ask that all of you stay with your schools as you make your way back to your buses. Teachers, there's usually at least one lost party on big movie nights at Broarwood. Don't let it happen to you. Tonight's movie presentation will be The Sound of Music. I immediately started clapping, even though I'd seen it a few times before, because it was Via's favorite movie of all time. But I was surprised that a whole bunch of kids, not from Beecher, booed and hissed and laughed. Someone from the right side of the field even threw a soda can at the screen, which seemed to surprise Mr. Tushman. I saw him stand up and look in the direction of the can thrower, though I knew he couldn't see anything in the dark. The movie started playing right away. The stadium lights dimmed. Maria, the nun, was standing at the top of the mountain, twirling around and around. It had gotten chilly all of a sudden, so I put on my yellow Montauk hoodie and adjusted the volume on my hearing aids, and leaned back against my backpack and started watching. The hills are alive. Chapter 8. The woods are alive. Somewhere around the boring part where the guy named Rolf and the oldest daughter are singing, "You are 16 going on 17, Jack nudged me. "Dude, I've got to pee," he said. We both got up and kind of hopscotched over the kids who were sitting or lying down in the sleeping bags. Summer waved as we passed, and I waved back. There were lots of kids from the other schools walking around by the food trucks, playing the carnival games, or just hanging out. Of course, there was a huge line for the toilets. "Forget this, I'll just find a tree," said Jack. "That's gross, Jack. Let's just wait," I answered. But we headed off to the row of trees at the edge of the field, which was past the orange cones that we were specifically told not to go past. And of course, I followed him. And of course, we didn't have our flashlights because we forgot to bring them. It was so dark now, we literally couldn't see 10 steps ahead of us as we walked towards the woods. Luckily, the movie gave off some light, so when we saw a flashlight coming toward us out of the woods, we knew immediately that it was Henry, Miles, and Amos. I guess they hadn't wanted to wait in line to use the toilets either. Miles and Henry were still not talking to Jack, but Amos had let go of the war a while ago, and he nodded hello to us as they passed by. "Be careful of the bears," shouted Henry, and he and Miles laughed as they walked away. Amos shook his head at us like, "Don't pay attention to them." Jack and I walked a little farther until we were just inside the woods. Then Jack hunted around for the perfect tree and finally did his business, though it felt like he was taking forever. The woods were loud with strange sounds and chirps and croaks, like a wall of noise coming out of the trees. Then we started hearing loud snaps not far from us, almost like cat gun pops, that definitely weren't insect noises. And far away, like in another world, we could hear raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens. "Ah, that's much better," said Jack, zipping up. "Now I have to pee," I said, which I did on the nearest tree. No way I was going farther in like Jack did. "Do you smell that?" "Like firecrackers," he said, coming over to me. "Oh yeah, that's what that is," I answered, zipping up. "Weird." Let's go. Chapter 9. Alien. We headed back the way we came, in the direction of the giant screen. That's when we walked straight into a group of kids we didn't know. They'd just come out of the woods doing stuff I'm sure they didn't want their teachers to know about. I could smell the smoke now, the smell of both firecrackers and cigarettes. They pointed a flashlight at us. There were 6 of them, 4 boys and 2 girls. They looked like they were in the 7th grade. "What school are you from?" one of the boys called out. "Beecher Prep," Jack started to answer, when all of a sudden one of the girls started screaming. "Oh my God!" she shrieked, holding her hand over her eyes like she was crying. I figured maybe a huge bug had just flown into her face or something. "No way!" one of the boys cried out, and he started flicking his hand in the air like he'd just touched something hot. And then he covered his mouth. "No freaking way, man! No freaking way!" All of them started half laughing and half covering their eyes now, pushing each other and cursing loudly. "What is that?" said the kid who was pointing the flashlight at us. And it was only then that I realized that the flashlight was pointed right at my face. And what they were talking about, screaming about, was me. "Let's get out of here," Jack said to me quietly, and he pulled me by my sweatshirt sleeve and started walking away from them. "Wait, wait, wait!" yelled the guy with the flashlight, cutting us off. He pointed the flashlight right at my face again, and now he was only about 5 feet away. Oh man, he said, shaking his head, his mouth wide open. "What happened to your face?" "Stop it, Eddie," said one of the girls. "I didn't know we were watching Lord of the Rings tonight," he said. "Look, guys, it's Gollum." This made his friends hysterical. Again, we tried to walk away from them, and again, the kid named Eddie cut us off. He was at least a head taller than Jack, who was about a head taller than me, so the guy looked huge to me. "No, man, it's Alien," said one of the other kids. No, man. It's an orc," laughed Eddie, pointing the flashlight in my face again. This time, he was right in front of us. "Leave him alone, okay?" said Jack, pushing the hand holding the flashlight away. "Make me," answered Eddie, pointing the flashlight in Jack's face now. "What's your problem, dude?" said Jack. "Your boyfriend's my problem." "Jack, let's just go," I said, pulling him by the arm. "Oh man, it talks!" screamed Eddie, shining the flashlight in my face again. Then one of the other guys threw a firecracker at our feet. Jack tried to push past Eddie, but Eddie shoved his hands into Jack's shoulders and pushed him hard, which made Jack fall backwards. "Eddie!" screamed one of the girls. "Look," I said, stepping in front of Jack and holding my hands up in the air like a traffic cop. "We're a lot smaller than you guys." "Are you talking to me, Freddy Krueger? I don't think you want to mess with me, you ugly freak," said Eddie. And this was the point where I knew I should just run as fast as I could, but Jack was still on the ground and I wasn't about to leave him. "Yo, dude," said a new voice behind us. "What's up, man?" Eddie spun around and pointed his flashlight towards the voice. For a second, I couldn't believe who it was. "Leave them alone, dude," said Amos, with Miles and Henry right behind him. "Says who?" said one of the guys with Eddie. "Just leave them alone, dude," Amos repeated calmly. "Are you a freak too?" said Eddie. "They're all a bunch of freaks," said one of his friends. Amos didn't answer them, but looked at us. "Come on, guys, let's go. Mr. Tushman's waiting for us." I knew that was a lie, but I helped Jack get up, and we started walking over to Amos. Then, out of the blue, the Eddie guy grabbed my hood as I passed by him, yanking it really hard so I was pulled backward and fell flat on my back. It was a hard fall, and I hurt my elbow pretty bad on a rock. I couldn't really see what happened afterward, except that Amos rammed into this Eddie guy like a monster truck, and they both fell down on the ground next to me. Everything got really crazy after that. Someone pulled me up by my sleeve and yelled, "Run!" And someone else screamed, "Get him!" at the same time. And for a few seconds, I actually had 2 people pulling the sleeves of my sweatshirt in opposite directions. I heard them both cursing until my sweatshirt ripped, and the first guy yanked me by my arm and started pulling me behind him as we ran, which I did as fast as I could. I could hear footsteps just behind us, chasing us, and voices shouting and girls screaming, but it was so dark I didn't know whose voices they were. only that everything felt like we were underwater. We were running like crazy, and it was pitch black, and whenever I started to slow down, the guy pulling me by my arm would yell, "Don't stop!" Chapter 10, Voices in the Dark. Finally, after what seemed like forever of running, someone yelled, "I think we lost him." "Amos?" "I'm right here," said Amos's voice a few feet behind us. "We can stop," Miles yelled from farther up. "Jack!" I yelled. "Whoa," said Jack, "I'm here." "I can't see a thing." "Are you sure we lost them?" Henry asked, letting go of my arm. That's when I realized that he'd been the one who was pulling me as we ran. "Yeah." "Shh, let's listen." We all got super quiet, listening for footsteps in the dark. All we could hear were the crickets and frogs and our own crazy panting. We were out of breath, stomachs hurting, bodies bent over the knees. "We lost them," said Henry. Whoa, that was intense. "What happened to the flashlight?" "I dropped it." "How did you guys know?" said Jack. "We saw them before. They looked like jerks." "You just rammed into him," I said to Amos. "I know, right?" laughed Amos. "He didn't even see it coming," said Miles. "He was like, 'Are you a freak too?' And you were like, 'Bam,'" said Jack. "Bam," said Amos, throwing a fake punch in the air. "But after I tackled him, I was like, 'Run, Amos, you schmuck. He's 10 times bigger than you.' And I got up and started running as fast as I could." We all started laughing. "I grabbed Augie and I was like, 'Run,' said Henry. "I didn't even know it was you pulling me," I answered. "That was wild," said Amos, shaking his head. "Totally wild." "Your lip is bleeding, dude." "I got in a couple of good punches," answered Amos, wiping his lip. "I think they were 7th graders. They were huge." "Losers!" Henry shouted really loudly, but we all shushed him. We listened for a second to make sure no one had heard him. "Where the heck are we?" asked Amos. "I can't even see the screen." "I think we're in the cornfields," answered Henry. "Duh, we're in the cornfields," said Miles, pushing a corn stalk at Henry. "Okay, I know exactly where we are," said Amos. "We have to go back in this direction. That'll take us to the other side of the field." "Yo, dude," said Jack, hand high in the air. "That was really cool of you guys to come back for us. Really cool. Thanks." "No problem," answered Amos, high-fiving Jack. And then Miles and Henry high-fived him too. "Yeah, dudes, thanks," I said, holding my palm up like Jack just had, though I wasn't sure if they'd high-five me too. Amos looked at me and nodded. "It was cool how you stood your ground, little dude," he said, high-fiving me. "Yeah, Augie," said Miles, high-fiving me too. "You were like, 'We're littler than you guys.'" I didn't know what else to say, I laughed. "Very cool," said Henry, and he high-fived me too. "Sorry I ripped your sweatshirt." I looked down and my sweatshirt was completely torn down the middle. One sleeve was ripped off and the other was so stretched out that it was hanging down to my knees. "Hey, your elbow's bleeding," said Jack. "Yeah," I shrugged. It was starting to hurt a lot. "You okay?" said Jack, seeing my face. I nodded. Suddenly, I felt like crying, and I was trying really hard not to do that. "Wait, your hearing aids are gone," said Jack. "What?" I yelled, touching my ears. The hearing aid band was definitely gone. That's why I felt like I was underwater. "Oh no," I said. And that's when I couldn't hold it in anymore. Everything that had just happened kind of hit me, and I couldn't help it. I started to cry, like big crying, what Mom would call the waterworks. I was so embarrassed, I hid my face in my arm, but I couldn't stop the tears from coming. The guys were really nice to me, though. They patted me on the back. "You're okay, dude, it's okay," they said. "You're one brave little dude, you know that?" said Amos, putting his arm around my shoulders. And when I kept on crying, he put both his arms around me like my dad would have done and let me cry. Chapter 11. the Emperor's Guard. We backtracked through the grass for a good 10 minutes to see if we could find my hearing aids, but it was way too dark to see anything. We literally had to hold on to each other's shirts and walk in single file so we wouldn't trip over one another. It was like black ink had been poured all around. "This is hopeless," said Henry. "They could be anywhere." "Maybe we can come back with a flashlight," answered Amos. "No, it's okay," I said. "Let's just go back. Thanks, though." We walked back toward the cornfields and then cut through them until the back of the giant screen came into view. Since it was facing away from us, we didn't get any of the light from the screen at all until we'd walked around to the edge of the woods again. That's where we finally started seeing a little light. There was no sign of the 7th graders anywhere. "Where do you think they went?" said Jack. "Back to the food truck," said Amos. "They're probably thinking we're going to report them." "Are we?" asked Henry. They looked at me. I shook my head. "Okay," said Amos. "But, little dude, don't walk around here alone again, okay? If you need to go somewhere, tell us and we'll go with you." "Okay," I nodded. As we got closer to the screen, I could hear, "High on a hill was a lonely goat herd," and could smell the cotton candy from one of the concession stands near the food truck. There were lots of kids milling around in this area, so I pulled what was left of my hoodie over my head and kept my face down, hands in pockets, as we made our way through the crowd. It had been a long time since I'd been out without my hearing aids, and it felt like I was miles under the earth. It felt like that song Miranda used to sing to me. "Ground control to Major Tom. Your circuit's dead. There's something wrong." I did notice as I walked that Amos had stayed right next to me, and Jack was close on the other side of me, and Miles was in front of us, and Henry was in back of us. They were surrounding me as we walked through the crowd of kids, like I had my own Emperor's Guard. Chapter 12. Sleep. Then they came out of the narrow valley, and at once she saw the reason. There stood Peter and Edmund and all the rest of Aslan's army, fighting desperately against the crowd of horrible creatures whom she had seen last night. Only now, in the daylight, they looked even stranger and more evil and more deformed. I stopped there. I'd been reading for over an hour, and sleep still didn't come. It was almost 2 a.m. Everyone else was asleep. I had my flashlight on under the sleeping bag, and maybe the light was why I couldn't sleep, but I was too afraid to turn it off. I was afraid of how dark it was outside the sleeping bag. When we got back to our section in front of the movie screen, no one had even noticed we'd been gone. Mr. Tushman and Miss Rubin and Summer and all the rest of the kids were just watching the movie. They had no clue how something bad had almost happened to me and Jack. It's so weird how that can be. How you could have a night that's the worst in your life, but to everyone else, it's just an ordinary night. Like on my calendar at home, I would mark this as being one of the most horrific days of my life. This and the day Daisy died. But for the rest of the world, this was just an ordinary day. Or maybe it was even a good day. Maybe somebody won the lottery today. Amos, Miles, and Henry brought me and Jack over to where we'd been sitting before, with Summer and Maya and Reed. And then they went and sat where they had been sitting before, with Zamina and Savannah and their group. In a way, everything was exactly as we had left it before we went looking for the toilets. The sky was the same, the movie was the same, everyone's faces were the same. Mine was the same. But something was different. Something had changed. I could see Amos and Miles and Henry telling their group what had just happened. I knew they were talking about it because they kept looking over at me while they were talking. Even though the movie was still playing, people were whispering about it in the dark. News like that spreads fast. It was what everyone was talking about on the bus ride back to the cabins. All the girls, even girls I didn't know very well, were asking me if I was okay. The boys were all talking about getting revenge on the group of 7th grade jerks, trying to figure out what school they were from. I wasn't planning on telling the teachers about any of what had happened, but they found out anyway. Maybe it was the torn sweatshirt and the bloody elbow, or maybe it's just that teachers hear everything. When we got back to the camp, Mr. Tushman took me to the first aid office, And while I was getting my elbow cleaned and bandaged up by the camp nurse, Mr. Tushman and the camp director were in the next room, talking with Amos and Jack and Henry and Miles, trying to get a description of the troublemakers. When he asked me about them a little later, I said I couldn't remember their faces at all, which wasn't true. It's their faces I kept seeing every time I closed my eyes to sleep. The look of total horror on the girl's face when she first saw me. The way the kid with the flashlight, Eddie, looked at me as he talked to me. Like he hated me. Like a lamb to the slaughter. I remember Dad saying that ages ago. But tonight, I think I finally got what it meant. Okay, so very quickly, who heard shriek or shrieked? Smith.
When Jack and August were about to get beat up, a girl shrieked when she saw August's face.
Good. Why did she shriek when she saw August's face? Why do you think? This is more of an inference. Smith?
I think she did it because August's face is really different, and sometimes it can be scary, especially in the dark.
Good. Do you think that she really needed to shriek, or do you think she maybe did it to be a little mean? Like she was surprised, but she was also trying to be a little mean. What do you think? Mason? Probably. She was probably reacting a lot more. Hey, Zari, until you get the microphone thing fixed, I'm probably not going to call on you, okay? Just because we can't really hear you, okay? So after lunch, we'll try again, okay? Okay, very good. So who heard, what was the next one? Intense. Who heard intense? Zadie?
When Jack said after the fight that it was intense.
Good. What was intense? You kind of already told me, but.
The fight they had.
The fight, what happened in the woods was very intense. Why was that intense? Why was that extremely extreme or, extreme or crazy? Sadie?
Because we don't know for sure if they were 7th graders because the book never told us for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just say they are. Their 7th graders were probably a lot bigger than them.
Okay.
And so it was a lot harder.
Very good. So Zadie said because they were older than them, most likely. We don't know exactly how old we are because the book never said, yes, they are 7th graders, but we know that they were definitely older and bigger. So it was kind of scary, and it was a lot scarier than it would have been if it was people their own size. What else made the situation intense? What was going on in that, like, what was the setting like? Where were they? What was it like there? Michaela?
It was dark.
It was very dark. Think about, that would be even scarier to be in a fight in the dark because then you can't see anything. You can't find a place to hide. You don't know where to run. Anything else that would make this scene particularly intense? Michaela? They couldn't see their faces. Although, were they able to see their faces? How do you know that they were able to see their faces? Cullen?
Because they had a flashlight.
Well, they had a flashlight, but what else? We hear later, they definitely saw their faces because August said something. Okay, let's see. Hi. In like 20 minutes?
20 minutes?
Yes. Okay.
You okay?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Was anybody up there locked out?
I'm sorry?
Was anybody upstairs locked out?
I don't think so. Okay, very good. What about milling? Who heard milling? Zara, you want to try? Let's see if we can hear you. Oh, we can't hear you. I think something's going on with the settings of your microphone. So during lunch and recess, just check the settings of the microphone, and you probably just have to turn the volume up. Aaron?
When August said there was a bunch of kids milling around.
Where were they?
By the concession stand.
By the concession stand. Why do you think they were milling around in that area?
Maybe because they were rushing to get food or something.
They wanted to get food. Very good. What else was at the concession stand? I mean, what else was around the concession stands that they would be milling around for? Colin?
They were probably playing the games.
They might have been playing the games because there was those carnival games. What else was around that they may be milling around? Smith?
The restrooms.
The restrooms. They're waiting in line for the restrooms. They're waiting in line for the concession stands. They're waiting in line for the games. They're walking between those three things. Maybe they don't really want to watch the movie, so they're over there just kind of taking time. Okay, very good. Any questions about vocab or that part? Okay, girls at home, go ahead and get out your journals. Open to the first clean page. Title it Wonder. I'll write the title on the board. Title it Wonder, Part 6. Everybody else, go ahead and get out one sheet of clean paper. Remember, what side do the holes go on? Colin.
The left.
The left.
Miss Valdez.
Hold on one second. Right at the top, you need to write Wonder, Part 8, Chapters 6 through 12, and today's date. I will write that on the board. Yes, Carla? Sorry. Okay, number 1. What rules and warnings are announced before the movie begins? That's just text evidence. What happens in the book? I'm sorry, what does the book tell us the rules and warnings were? Try to put it in your own words as best you can. It might be close, but just don't copy directly from the book. Number 2, why do Jack and August venture into the woods? What did you think would happen? Remember, venture is a more exciting word for go. So that part, the first question is text evidence. The book tells you exactly why they went into the woods. But then, you have to say what you thought would happen next. Don't tell me what did happen. Tell me what you thought would happen next as they're walking into the woods to find somewhere to go to the restroom. Number 3, choose one adjective to describe Eddie. Use text evidence to support your choice. So an adjective, remember, is a describing word. It describes a noun. So you're picking one adjective, a word that describes the person, Eddie. Then the book, tell me what happened in the book that made you choose that adjective. Right? So you're using text evidence to tell me why rather than making inferences. Usually when you answer the question why, you're making inferences. But this tells us to use text evidence to tell why you chose that word. Number 4, who helps August and Jack? Why is this surprising? So again, the first question, who helps August and Jack? You're using text evidence to answer. The book tells us who it is. But the second part, why is this surprising? That's making an inference. Why is it surprising that these particular people come and help August? Think about what's already happened in the story and why that would be surprising. Number 5, what does August realize after they stop running? How does Amos show kindness to August in this moment? These are all text evidence. They've stopped running. They've gotten into their fight. They've gotten away. They finally stopped running. What did August realize? What happened? What did he notice? Or what did somebody point out to him that he suddenly realized? Then, how does Amos show kindness to August in this moment? Amos is kind to August in a specific way. What does he do that shows kindness to August when he realizes this thing? And his reaction to realizing that something has happened. This particular specific thing has happened. Victoria, do you have a question about it? Make sure it's not giving away any answers. Quick.
Is it like if we do one sentence, does it require just one sentence?
For number 5? No, it requires quite a few sentences because you're answering 2 different questions, and then you need, for a well thought out answer, that would probably be a lot more than 2 sentences. Okay? Because you're saying, how does Amos show kindness? And then I also want you to say, why does he do this? Why do you think he does this? The book doesn't tell us, so you have to make an inference. Why? How does he show kindness, which is text evidence? Why does she show this kindness, which is making inferences? Remember, how is usually, when you answer the question how, it's usually text evidence, almost always. When you answer the question why, it's almost always making an inference.
So you're going to be expecting more than 2 sentences?
Yeah, I'm going to be expecting a fully well thought out answered question, which means however many sentences it takes you to do that. Number 5, explain what the chapter title Emperor's Guard means. Now yours is worded slightly different, I think. Might not be. But you're just explaining, what do you think the chapter title, Emperor's Guard, means? That's the chapter of that second to last chapter. And number 7, write at least 3 immediate effects of the attack on August. So 3 immediate effects are like what happened right then. What were at least 3 immediate, that means right then, what were at least 3 effects of that attack on August? Any questions about the questions? Zadie, quickly.
So for number 5, it'll kind of be like how you do a reading log, 5 to 7 sentences.
Maybe. I don't know. It just depends on how many sentences it takes you to fully answer the question. Just know it has to be at least 2 or more. 2 may not fully answer it. 7 may be writing way too much and just trying to make it long. You need to figure that out. Okay, remember, when you write the questions, pick one question. You do not have to answer these in order. Carla, do you have to answer these in order?
No.
No. Ethan, do you have to answer these in order? Kingston, do you have to answer these in order? Everybody, do you have to answer these in order?
No.
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 Pick the question. Like if you pick number 3 to do first, write number 3. I'm sure Miss Yancey won't mind if we're a little late. So if you choose number 3 to answer first, you're going to write number 3 on the left side of the pink line. Then on the right, you're going to write the whole question. Choose one adjective to describe Eddie. Use text evidence to support your choice. Then skip a line. Start writing your answer. Then skip a line. Say you chose to do number 1 next. You're going to write number 1 on the left side of the pink line. And then start writing the question. What rules and warnings are announced before the movie begins? Skip 1 line, start writing your answer, and then repeat until time is up. Does everybody understand? Okay. When I say go, you will have 15 minutes. Make sure you are spending the entire time thinking and writing. Choose the question that you can give the best answer to first. Answer it, then choose the question you can give the second best answer to. Answer it, and so on. Does everybody understand? Okay, go. Yes, sorry. Yes, sorry. Okay. I can hear your background, but I can't hear you. Just please write your questions, okay? Aaron, where's your journal? Okay, go ahead.
Wallace,
Go ahead and begin. You're using time up right now.
I can't really see the questions.
Okay.